are able to derive that learning and put it to use. 3, not to be dependent on 1 or 2 brilliant people with a large followership, but build an institution.
Yeah.
And 4th, all the time have the humility and the authenticity that you talk about. So these are some of the strong messages that are coming out of your conversation. Now, let me ask you a question. These wonderful strengths of Dr. Reddy and your own strengths as an enabler of this work that is being done by the institution, if you have to fully leverage the power of these values and these strengths of the organization to serve the well-being of all stakeholders in the future, given particularly the extremely challenging time mankind is facing today, what are some of your thoughts on how you can leverage your strengths to serve the well-being of all in these challenging times?
I'll give you a few examples of what happened in the last 1 month.
Yes.
On the 3rd day of lockout, we were producing sanitizers and we were giving them out free.
Wow.
In our facility. We never produced a sanitizer before that.
That's amazing.
That's amazing. And nobody asked anybody to do this. Just some people got together and say, this is going to be a shortage item for people. Let's go and do it. And they did it. We know there are several products which are being trialed as remedies for COVID. They're not proven yet, but they're all being trialed. As they're being trialed, we are trying to see how we can help in the supply chain of these products. Some of them are off patent, which we can produce and will produce. Some of them are patented. We are seeing how we can improve the availability of those drugs. And all this has happened within days of announcing this lockout. And as of now, people are working round the clock, trying to get these products done. And similarly, we are many of our people have volunteered because there are about 200 people of Dr. Reddys out there in Hyderabad feeding migrant workers. And we are partnering with Hare Krishna Mission Akshay Patra to provide 25,000 meals every day. And all these came from the ground. It was not somebody at the top selling, guys, we have to feed the migrant workers, but suggestions came, decisions were taken and operationalized within hours. This is the power of alignment, power of living the values.
Wonderful, Prasad. That is very, very nice to hear. And what is your message to a lot of people in this world? Because what I notice amongst all of us, on one hand, there is the fear and insecurity. A lot of small and medium-sized companies, they don't have the cash to pay their employees. Their customers are not paying them. They don't have the revenues to actually pay their own employees. On the other hand, there is this need for them to continue in the future because they have to make the organization survive, even though they are going through this pain right now.
Yeah.
And they also need to, in order to survive, they have to do new things which can make their future better.
Yeah.
So this polarity of having fear and insecurity on one side and requirement of quick learning and creativity and innovation to create a better future, how can these two coexist? And what is your message of leadership to all the people who are facing both in their own hearts right now?
Yeah. So, one of the things that I'm very proud of in Dr. Reddys is the resilience. We have gone through a lot of challenges. It's not been a linear journey. It has been ups and downs, and many more downs than many more ups. And the company has always come back firing rapidly and with full strength. So resilience is a quality which we have to create in our people. It's in the mind. If you fall into a negative spiral and become desperate, you will not be able to see the bright side of this situation. So you have to maintain your calm. You have to understand the facts and do what it takes to be, to come back. First to survive, then come back, and then innovate. So it's again about people. It's not, a company is nothing but it's people. And the people have to be trusted upon to do the right thing. As a leader, we have to be calm. We have to give them the confidence. We have to, back them and support them in this journey.
And what is your guidance for those people who still are required to take some tough calls because they don't have the cash to pay? And how do they sort of still do it? Because many of us hesitate to share this with our people when we are in difficulty.
People are very intelligent. We can't hide the facts from them. So I would encourage candor and sharing of your situation and find a solution with the people. And some people will hurt. This is a crisis. It won't go without damage. And like when it rains, all of us will get wet. Like my CEO keeps saying, it's raining and all of us will get wet. So, but in that sense, being upfront, candid, and sharing the pain. You can't just put the pain on a few people. All of us have to share the pain. People at the shop, the top, have to take a greater share of the pain because we can. And that's how you cross the situation. But to say that I won't act is fatal for the organization. That's a much bigger sin.
Prasad, one question from my side before. I'm sure there are a lot of questions already in the Q&A, and that my one question is, what is now many experts are talking. I serve on the board of Shizuken University in Japan, set up by Dr. Tomo Noda, who was at Harvard. And I was having a conversation with him, and he told me, Anil-san, we have to live with this coronavirus for next 2 years. We have to learn to live with this challenge. We cannot wish it away. And we have to find new ways of living and working. And we can't just say it will just go away by itself. It's not such a simple thing. It will take time for a new drug to be discovered, brought to the market in a safe way. You can't just accelerate it beyond a certain point. So he was sounding very wise, and he was saying, we must build that resilience. So what is your own prognosis? What is your own, everybody is trying to anticipate what will happen, but.
Yeah. So I completely agree that, this is a long haul. You will not have a miracle in the next few weeks, which will clear everything out. You will have select a number of different kinds of solutions, which are temporary solutions, till a vaccine is found. And even if a vaccine is found, to scale that globally to 8 billion people and ensure that it is safe and works well, and all the population is covered, is a massive task. So even if we had a miracle, it would take you at least 18 to 24 months to get that miracle to everybody. So you have a 2-year period at a minimum, and it would probably likely be more like 3-4 years before we all have a satisfied solution. But we all have to get used to increased level of hygiene, increased level of surveillance, increased level of distancing and practices, because this has been a wake-up call for humanity. And I would completely agree with your friend.
Okay, I think, thank you very much. I also read somewhere, and I have experienced it in my own self. Whenever I have some feeling that my resilience is going down, I turn towards compassion. I believe that instead of focusing on my pain and my problem, I should find a way to serve others. Yeah. And when I experience their issues and their pain, then my pain appears very small there. So I think I find that compassion is a very strong antidote to resilience. What would you say about that?
I mean, I completely agree that, when you see your problem, but you see a larger problem next to it, your problem diminishes by itself. Beyond that, I also feel sharing with your team, having a partnership, a band of brothers and sisters who are all in this battle together, creates a lot more resilience than you putting all the stress on yourself.
Wonderful. What a nice thing to say. I think there are now several questions from the 190 people who are physically in this Zoom space. And there are, of course, I'm sure, thousands watching outside. So here is the first question, which Shashank Pratik is asking. In a prevalent, unprecedented scenario, where there is fear in the team members, what do we do for them to stay focused? This was the very first question in that Q&A.
I couldn't hear the question. The audio was bad. Can you repeat that, please?
In a prevalent, unprecedented scenario where there is fear in the team members, what do we do for them to stay focused?
I am not a guru to give solutions to every situation, but I'll share my experience. I think it is important to be calm of what you can do and what you can do nothing about. And don't worry too much about what you can't do anything about. And focus on what you can do to make the situation better. And only when you act, the situation will change. So find out where you can act, what you can do to make a positive impact and work on it. The other parts which you cannot help or do anything about, I think you have to accept them.
Thank you. Then the next question is a very unique question. Prasad is asking that one is the focus on medicine, but what about change in the food habits and lifestyles for people to source good health? What is your comment on that?
I mean, absolutely. Nutrition, exercise, mental health, all these are important in our lives. Health is not just about medicine. Medicine comes when you have damaged your health. But I think nutrition, sleep, exercise, mental managing your stress levels, managing your emotions, all of these are important tools to live a healthier life.
And that reminds me that I heard that the word disease means when the system is not at ease, there is disease. So what you really talked about, the mental well-being and the mind sometimes has a profound impact on the body. So that alignment between body and mind and soul is such an important part of this, isn't it? Okay. Now, the third question is, which books would you recommend for the young leaders of this country to read so that could inspire them? What is your guidance on the books that would be really useful to them?
This is again a hard question, but I can tell you one or two books which moved me. I read a lot. I used to read a lot of management books. These days, I don't read that much. But there are two books which I stay in my memory always. One is a book written by an Indian author called Keshavan Nair on Gandhi and his principles to management. It is called A Higher Standard of Leadership. This is a difficult book to get. I'm not sure if it's available on Amazon or thing, but it's a very small book, but very profound in how you can take Gandhi's thoughts to management. This is one. Then the other book which really moved me was written by a practitioner from Shell, Ari DeGoose. Company. The name of the book is The Living Company.
The Living Company, absolutely.
These are two books, I think, which made a big impact on me.
How wonderful. Now, Shyam Viswanathan, my dear friend and colleague who should have been in my place in soil if it were not for some personal reasons, he's asking a question that fear is a disruptive force and captains of industry are seeing rapid erosion in their personal wealth in the last few days. So at an employee level, when you see this and you see that people are staring at layoffs and starvation and all this is going on. So how does a person like you look at being at sourcing inspiration in these challenging times where you see all these images of people starving and then also your own personal wealth and stock value goes down in some companies' cases? This is not true only for you. And so how do you look at this sourcing inspiration when there is so much of fear and so much of this issues that we are facing?
Like I said, where I cannot make a difference, I don't bother. I don't look at my stock price every day, but by the way, it has gone up quite a bit for some reason. But I'm not in here to buy the stock or sell the stock, so I'm not concerned about stock. What I'm worried about is my operating cash, my expenses, my employees, and my cash flows. Absolutely, we need to manage this very carefully so that we don't get into a zone where it puts the company and a lot of livelihoods at risk. We have to sometimes prune expenses, and that is the right thing to do for the organization. We have to do it with courage and conviction and fairness. And like I said, people at the top have to take a higher cut. People whose livelihoods depend on their earnings, we have to be sensitive to that. And if you have what you talked about, compassion, empathy, and fairness, I think it is something that you can face. Fear is irrational sometimes. By being scared and worried, you're only getting into a zone of inaction and a zone where your mental stability is disrupted. So it's very important not to get into that zone.
Now, Subra is asking this question that it is very commendable to see your holistic perspective in terms of serving stakeholders rather than only shareholders. But how do you carry other members of the top management and members of the board, some of whom may want to put disproportionate focus on the financial side, and with your vision of serving multiple stakeholders?
Let me say that it is not that I am not interested in the financial performance of the company. Of course, I am interested, and it's not that we are disregarding that, but you can do both, and you can do both well, and that is how good companies are run. You can be a good force for good in society. You can do good things for your customers and your shareholders, and that is the sweet spot I want all of us to aim for. Not that I take money from the customers and give it to our shareholders, or take money from the employees and give it to shareholders. No, we create increasing value for all stakeholders without trading off their interests one against the other. So I don't have that dilemma.
Yeah. Another question here is that the scenario planning, the whole concept, which by the way also Shell, you talked about the living company. I think that they practice a lot of scenario planning. So when you are doing scenario planning and you are looking at different things, then in a very VUCA-oriented environment like of the current pandemic, to what extent are you doing this in pharma companies to plan multiple scenarios, do gaming and do simulations to say what would happen?
We don't use the scenario planning tool as much. And to some extent, pharmaceuticals are defensive stocks, they don't. The performance of a pharmaceutical company doesn't depend on the discretion of a patient. If you are prescribed a drug, you will take it. It doesn't matter if the economy is up or down or whatever happens. We are an essential service to you. So in that sense, there are events like this which disrupt supply chains. We saw some level of this on the dependence on China. And over the last few years, we've been moving from China to India. When we source key starting materials, we didn't complete the transition. But in our scenarios, China was a big risk factor for us, the supply chain part.
I see. A former colleague of mine from Aisha Consultancy, Sanjay Chaudhary, is asking this question. How do you see the post-COVID-19 world? He said, we are set up for efficiency and scale. Do you see these being subordinated by other factors, especially in one of your main markets, North America?
Absolutely. The globalization era will be rethought. I think countries will become more inward focused. We are already seeing that. Supply chains, I think the negative thing out of this COVID will be that countries will be more inward focused, and each country will focus on its own security, its own citizens, much more than take a global view. So it kind of signals an era of, end of globalization as we knew it, where people were freely traveling, goods were going everywhere, manufacturing was everywhere. I do see that situation changing as we go forward.
Then Archit Sharma, one of the participants, is asking this question. So how are we using information technology in this condition for treating patients, telemedicine, or deploying technology in a much bigger way? How do you think this whole healthcare industry is deploying technology?
Very interesting ways. Machine learning is pervading many things in diagnosis, in pattern recognition. Today, radiologists are much more powerful because of the use of machine language and technology. Manufacturing is dramatically changing, using data analytics, IoT, automation. A whole lot of work is being done in every field, not just in medicine. Drug discovery is being expedited using artificial intelligence. So, you know, as a company, I think I worry that we are not moving fast enough in adopting technology. We have a first few, maybe 10 use cases of ML and AI, but it is still very little, and we are really pushing that we have to do a lot more. The other thing I've seen is that when you automate processes, you have a big jump in productivity, which comes up when the whole chain is complete. For example, today our labs are all automated, so people are able to sit at their home and process data of the tests they do in the lab. So there's a minimal staff in the labs, and many of them are off-site and working, and so it's also helping in social distancing. And then we have things such as bots doing work which people used to work and do on computers. So it's just mind-boggling the amount of change that technology is going to come in and bring in all aspects of healthcare.
Aman Pathak is asking, what were the failures in your life and how did you overcome them?
Many, many failures. But I'll start with the most recent one and the lessons it taught me. 4 years ago, or 5 years ago, roughly, we had a very bad FDA inspection. And we got a warning letter for 3 of our sites. One can always say the US has become tough. The regulator is taking it out on Indian companies, which is kind of a pattern you see that a lot of Indian companies got warning letters and this thing. But in my view, it was our fault. We let operations slip, the rigor slip. We were much more compliance oriented rather than absolute quality oriented. So it was a big blow to my pride because I always prided on pursuing excellence, pursuing technology, pursuing quality. These were fundamental to me. But it happened to us and it was a massive blow. And it also had a huge financial impact on the company. But we used the occasion to rethink how we are doing things. And we really made some very fundamental changes to the system, and we are on a journey of transformation. And as this transformation is progressing, I can see that we will be one of the global leaders in quality, automation, technology, in manufacturing operations. So it has given me that wake-up call, and also the opportunity to make us much more stronger than we would have been if we had not been hit by this. So, you know, it was difficult for me to digest, but after I came out of that, I really used the opportunity to strengthen the operations.
Thank you. Thank you, Prasad. Shivani Bhatnagar is asking, what is that one thing that puts you off in a candidate or a leader? That's one thing that would bug you the most.
Many things, actually, but if I have to single out, like I said, integrity is an issue, but you assume that he has integrity and he's crossed that. Then you have a me kind of a person. I, me. When a guy keeps using the word I a lot and me a lot, it puts me off because, you know, great things can never be achieved by one individual. Yeah. And if a guy is saying that, you know, it's kind of inauthentic.
Vivek Dubey, who's just graduating from SOIL and who has worked in healthcare industry for many years before he came to SOIL, and he's a very passionate young student. He's concerned that there is so much of this impact taking place. And he says he knows that, as you said, that vaccine will take a couple of years.
Yeah.
So what do pharma companies need to do to transform themselves? Because a large part of your people, for example, in the sales function, won't be able to even go and meet the doctors and, you know, do that whole part. So what do pharma companies need to do to sort of to handle this challenge and transform themselves?
So digital is a solution. Like you are in Delhi, I am in Hyderabad. We are having a good conversation.
Yes.
So the doctor will be in his office. The medical rep will be in his house. They will have a conversation. So transactions won't stop. Technology will enable these interactions. And we're already seeing that. Our PSRs, our pharmaceutical sales representatives are calling on doctors through technology, through Zoom, giving them presentations, updating them, and ensuring the products are available. So we will move to a virtual mode, and we are already doing that. We had our first digital launch of a product. A new product was launched a week ago without any rep calling on any doctor.
Wonderful. What a nice experience. Sanjay Sharma is asking an important question. He said the government, when it decides to step away from the lockdown and takes a decision to open up the economy more, what would be in their mind? Because he's saying the data related to number of live cases, horizontal spread, it might worsen in the next few weeks. As some people are saying, in May it can go through a peak. If that happens, then how will the government take a decision? Because on one hand, there is this whole thing about livelihoods, and the other thing is about lives. So how would the government balance this? What's your reading of the situation?
So I'm ill-equipped to answer this question, but as companies, we have to do all that we can to ensure our workplaces are safe. We don't contribute to spread by being lax. We as individuals have to lead very responsible lives so that we don't contribute to the chaos. That we can do. The government, I think we should trust them. They have enough advisors, they have enough data, they have enough wisdom, and we should trust them that they will do the right thing. Irrespective of our political affiliation, I think this is a time when we have to support the government and understand that they are acting on balancing many, many factors and help them in this preventing the spread as citizens.
So one of the soil students who is graduating this year, Archit Datta, who is the son of an army officer, he's asking, in the true, perhaps the Fauji spirit, how can companies help each other in this crisis? And Nilanjana Bahaduri, another colleague who's been attending our senior leadership program, is asking, how can companies come together and collaborate? She's saying, will the competition spirit be replaced with collaboration at this time? So both of them are asking, how can companies help each other and to handle this crisis?
So the pharma industry is a very interesting case of great collaboration. At any given time, we work with everybody. We buy from our competitors, we sell to our competitors, we license to our competitors. Competitors sue us. All this happens. The industry is very comfortable collaborating with each other and has a clear ethic here that, we will collaborate, we will not collude, of course. But the collaboration is a very well-established behavior in our industry. It's a vast product portfolio, and not everybody can do everything, and we have to rely on each other.
Hamid Jung, my former colleague from Grow Talent, who now works as talent management leader for Baxter, he's asking a question that, what do you think followers expect from leaders in these times of crisis? What are the top few things that they look for from leaders?
This is not very different from what I said in the early part of our conversation.
Correct.
Integrity, intelligence, humility, interest in other people, pursuit of excellence, and a purpose, I think, purpose-driven. These are qualities I think are common, like you said, to all great leaders.
Now, Naveen, who's asking a very practical question on the shop floor, he says, what steps would you be taking to bring workers on the shop floor to protect them from their own families and other colleagues? How will you ensure that the places where they stay and then they come and they travel and they enter the workforce? So how do you look at the whole system? Because your shop floor may be absolutely fine, but there is a whole system they live in, operate in, travel to work, etc. So how will you ensure that?
So firstly, we have to do a lot of education.
Yes.
And we must assume that everybody is interested in their self-preservation. And we give them the tools, we give them what they need, we empower them with information, knowledge. We are constantly running training programs on how to be healthy during COVID. And at some point, we can't police everybody. So we have to trust them that they're doing the right thing, but you take all the precautions. If somebody has been reckless and he comes into the workplace, you have screening mechanisms to understand whether he's carrying something or not. And we are hoping that very soon we will have a low-cost testing system so that we can test everybody.
Wonderful.
Quickly identify somebody.
Wonderful. What a nice idea. One of our alumni who was always a very compassionate leader, her name is Neha Mandra Kaushal, who married another classmate at Soil. She's asking, sir, what were the first three things that you did as a leader when you heard of the global pandemic? The first three things you did as a leader.
So, as you know, I am not running the company now,
Sure.
but I'm just mentoring areas.
Yes.
So the company quickly followed the directives of distancing, work from home, all of that. But this was not a new situation. It was not like suddenly it became a pandemic. The signals were there. We were watching the news from Wuhan. We were watching supply chain disruptions. So we were kind of mentally prepared that this is coming. So we invested that time in creating all the things that were necessary to be prepared to work from home, do all the things that were there. But I have been focusing on the relief effort, and that is where I've looked at three areas. One is feeding the migrants. Second one was supplies to government officials, hospitals, and third one is really information sharing with all the peers.
Okay, very good. Now, Rishikesh Menon is asking that what is your level of confidence in the pharma companies in India in terms of capability and research to discover the COVID vaccine? What is your own personal confidence in our industry?
So we need not look at it as an India solution. I think globally there is a lot of work happening on the vaccines. Three vaccines are already in human trials, one in China, two in the US. Then there are about 170 different vaccines being developed. So, and the Indian companies are also working on them. Several Indian companies, Serum Institute, Bharat Biotech, Indian Immunologics, all of them have announced programs. So I think it will be solved. And Indian companies will ensure that the Indian population have enough supplies, while the innovation may happen anywhere else in the world.
Pratik Jain is asking, what would be your advice for startups to sustain and survive during these tough times?
Again, I am no expert in this, but I think conserving cash is the primary goal now. And of course, preserving your team and lying low till the situation gets better and reducing the burn as much as possible. The times where, a lot of funding was available and a lot of spending was done by startups to acquire customers before they turn profitable, that model is under serious threat. So we have to see.
The co-founder of Soil and also the founder of Nucleus Software, Yogesh Andle, who actually mentors so many young entrepreneurs in the country, he said that moment when you came for that transformation leadership workshop, the first 3 days, if you go back to that experience, what happened inside you as a result of that experience? And what triggered the inner sort of transformation in your side when you said, I am responsible? Can you describe that a little bit more? He's curious to learn that.
So I mean, that was my first organized executive education program that I ever attended. I was probably 32, 33, I don't remember. So all the participants were of a slightly older age. It happens that somewhere in the middle of the program, it hit me. I was just going through the motions of the conversations we were having, the exercises we were doing, the cases we were discussing. But somehow, it just flashed in my mind that I had the whole paradigm wrong, that others are not there to help me succeed, but I'm here to help others succeed. And that came to me as an epiphany, I think. I don't remember how exactly it happened. Wow. I remember that lesson for a long time. It's in my mind.
Ashwini Khurana, a friend who's asking this question, that my team leaders, in my opinion, seem to be on an overdrive to keep all the staff busy thinking and being overly indulgent in video conferencing and brainstorming new ideas? Are they not trying to milk the bull in a way? And how do you tell them to relax? Maybe rather change gears and focus on self-improvement instead, rather than get into all kinds of activities to keep having meetings and crisis management meetings. And I think Ashwini is the one who owns this, if he's the same Ashwini, which I hope he is. He owns this big Karma Lake lands, and he's the large sort of group on the outskirts of Delhi. Yes.
Who am I to tell him what to do? I mean, he has to figure it out himself. The solution is within him. So
yeah, and so he maybe this is something similar to what happened to you. So the fact that this is not about just telling your team leaders what to do, but to how to source that journey from inside. How nice. I think this has been a great conversation, and we are coming to the end of this, and I realize that there are only 3 minutes left, and there are many, many more questions which we can also send it to you. And if there is something particularly interesting, you can choose to sort of reply to them subsequently offline. I just want to take the time to appreciate, Prasad, how much I value your presence in this conversation. And my belief that in goodness of people comes out each time they very consciously learn from their own best work. They are conscious of where they get the strength from. And their whole vision is to build the institution and not just put the spotlight on themselves. And I think this endeavor to build the institution to serve multiple stakeholders and to really take responsibility for the way we live now are such profound insights. The things that you said today, right from how you need to lead with these polarities. On one hand, to have the tolerance for people to make mistakes. On the other hand, really have strong processes to ensure. So there's yin-yang between strong process orientation and also this culture of experimentation, tolerance, learning from mistakes at the same time. And always remembering that the power comes from purpose. So I'm greatly reminded of what I learned from my own spiritual teacher. And I know that you have also this belief in the spiritual dimension of life, where he said to us, when you are inspired by higher purpose, you rise in love. And then the power comes in people joining hands with you, because they too are inspired by that purpose. And they are empowering themselves with that choice they make every day, that I go and work for Dr. Reddy's lab, which is not just another pharma company with a good stock price, but because I know the people there are authentic, genuine. They have no hesitation in talking about making mistakes, like you did about this wake-up call a few years back. And above all, they're always focused on making sure they serve the well-being of all. So what a delightful conversation. And I just want all of us to give you a very big hand. So,
thank you so much, Anil.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your friendship. Thank you for your guidance. And thank you for having me here today. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you. Thank you, Prasad. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, Rajeshri. So we now close the meeting. Thank you very much, all the leaders who turned up today, all the 180 people. We really enjoyed hosting you today. Thank you very much.